Final Touch Canadians are doing a double take in Vancouver because an elaborate and ornate chandelier has been installed under a city bridge.
And you won't believe what it's worth. What is this $4.8 million chandelier doing under a city bridge in Canada? Turning heads and sparking controversy. That's what. The elaborate fixture is a public art installation in Vancouver designed by artist Rodney Graham. It's titled Spinning Chandelier, and it actually spins and flashes its lamps. Some think the display, funded by a local luxury property developer, is mesmerizing. It's a garish display in a city that's facing a housing crisis. The developer defends the display, saying public art will always have critics. It's kind of bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a talker, that's for sure.
Hanging out under a bridge. All right, that's our time for now. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. News 3 Now at 5 starts right now.
Right now at 5, another school shooting in Wisconsin. This time in Oshkosh, as a student and resource officer are injured. We will have the very latest.
How a new training technique being taught to Madison police officers is focusing on safety.
Plus, registered sex offenders may be allowed to live closer to child-protected areas in Reedsburg, why the city says it is considering allowing it to happen.
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now at 5.
Thanks for staying with News 3 Now. For the second time in as many days, there's been another shooting at a Wisconsin high school.
This time it was at Oshkosh West High School, where a student resource officer and a student were injured. Charlotte DeLeste is with us now with more on this latest school shooting. Charlotte.
Well, Susan and Eric, here's what we know so far. Oshkosh Police Chief Dean Smith says the 16-year-old student stabbed the school resource officer around 9 o'clock this morning. That SRO then fired his gun one time, striking the student. Now, this apparently took place in the resource officer's office. After calling for help, the first officers arrived. In fact, the chief estimates at least 75 officers from multiple departments responded to the school to make sure students and staff were safe.
We care about you. We want you to be safe, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you're going to be okay. This is a tragedy. This is something that no school district, no city, no community wants to face. But together, we're going to come through. We're going to make everybody whole.
Kids who go to schools in Wisconsin and around the country today face a danger that is one that was not present when I was a student in public schools in Wisconsin, which is a real concern about issues of mass violence in schools. Kids go through lockdown drills as a result of that. They prepare for these events. We've got to take action to work to make those events less likely.
Governor Tony Evers says this shooting hit close to home for him. 2 of his kids graduated from Oshkosh West, and he lived there for a period of time. He says, quote, "We can't just accept that violence in our schools is a foregone conclusion, and we have to get to work to do everything we can to keep our kids and our communities safe." The student and officer are in the hospital. Both are expected to be okay. Now, all classes in the district are canceled tomorrow, and administrators say they will communicate with parents tonight about counseling services available for students tomorrow.
Charlotte, thank you. And an update on the shooting that happened yesterday at Waukesha South. Police say a 17-year-old had pointed a pellet gun at another student's head. This was in a confrontation that led to a police officer shooting that teenager. Police say the teen had a gun in his hand when an officer shot him once in the leg, twice in the arm. That student said to be in stable condition. Police found 2 firearms in that classroom. They say both were pellet guns. Police later searched the student's home and found more pellet guns.
Meanwhile, in western Wisconsin, the Sparta School District canceled classes today. Last night, the district said it received information about a missing gun that may be in the possession of a Sparta student. Officials didn't know where the student was and decided to cancel classes as a precaution. The district says it will hold classes tomorrow.
All Madison police officers are being trained in a new technique to take down a suspect.
The goal is to keep the officers and the suspect safer when force needs to be used. Our Amanda Quintana is here with what this change entails. Amanda?
The statewide training teaches officers to work as an individual. Not sure if they have backup coming, but this technique they're learning is for working together. The MPD Use of Force Coordinator has been looking at trends over the last 3 years and found that oftentimes 2 officers have the same goal, taking down a suspect. But they're still working independently by using that state training. That has turned out to be less effective and has the possibility of causing more injury for the officer and the suspect.
It's not rocket science, but it's just specific techniques that aren't part of that state mandated curriculum. And I think some of the biggest component, I think, is encouraging our officers and giving them the tools to act as a team. You know, when we have the luxury of having multiple officers.
In this new training, instead of backing away or fighting, the first officer gets positioned behind the suspect, holding their upper body. Then the second officer will go for the legs, taking them to the floor, turning them over, and cuffing them together. This training is meant for a suspect who's violently resisting, but not for somebody with a weapon. And again, this is for when multiple officers are there. When an officer is alone, they will still rely on that statewide training.
Amanda, thank you.
Time for a look now at our weather. Let's check your first alert forecast. Here's Chief Meteorologist Gary Canalti. Gary?
And looking very nice out there. In fact, temperatures today made it up into the lower 40s over parts of southern Wisconsin, including Madison. Visible cloud track shows how we had clouds this morning and then sunshine for much of the day, just a few passing clouds in the afternoon. High temperatures did reach the lower 40s in some areas, including Madison at 42. Janesville topped out at 45. Although farther to the north, where there's still a little snow cover on the ground, temperatures stayed in the upper 30s. Right now, temperatures are generally in the mid to upper 30s, a little colder to the north. Warmest temperatures are over southwestern Wisconsin. By tomorrow morning, look for temperatures to be in the upper 20s with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow will be a partly sunny and breezy day with a high temperature of 38 degrees. Still looking for nice weather for much of this week, but colder weather is on the way for next week. I'll have more details and weather in a few minutes.
Thank you, Gary. The city of Reedsburg is considering a proposal to allow sex offenders to live about 250 feet closer to child safe zones, places like schools and public buildings.
The city administrator says that decision came after seeing that many offenders don't have many living options in Reedsburg. But Jamie Perez learned today that residents where those offenders might live aren't really pleased with this idea. Jamie.
Well, just by talking with some people around that area today, the general consensus is that no one really wants a sex offender to live close by, especially the people who have kids of their own. We talked with some neighbors today about this and asked the city administrator what this could mean if this proposal passes.
It's a pretty safe area.
Always has been.
Jory Jasper said he's lived in this neighborhood since 2004. When he heard that the city is considering a proposal that would make his neighborhood an area where sex offenders could live.
Obviously not good, because I have a 6-year-old. I'd worry about her nonstop. You know, I don't even always lock my doors, to be honest with you. But I would then. I'd worry about somebody sneaking in or, breaking in, or my daughter riding her bike down the street.
And he's not alone in feeling this way. Many of the neighbors that we spoke with who didn't want to speak on camera said they didn't want this to happen either. But the city administrator said sex offenders have to live somewhere.
If your ordinance is so encompassing and the restricted area is so large that it kind of covers your entire town and it doesn't permit any designated offenders to live anywhere.
Right now, the rule is that registered sex offenders can't live within 1,500 feet of a child's safe zone, like a school or a community building, which are all the pink areas on this map.
But we proposed the 1,250 because it was a little bit more inclusive.
By scaling back to 1,250 feet, Becker said offenders have more options on where they can live.
What are you planning on telling parents to ensure that this 250-foot difference will not compromise the safety of their kids?
We can show them the maps and we can show them the lack of sex offenders that actually do live in the city limits within Reedsburg.
But for residents like Jasper, the difference in the number of feet really doesn't matter.
It probably doesn't make that big of a difference. Close is close. And knock a couple more feet off it, they're close enough that it bothers me.
While people like Jasper wait for a final decision to be made, he's just hoping that his neighborhood can still be safe, even if an offender ends up living nearby.
Probably won't move, but I kind of like it here, but we'll see how it goes, I guess.
There are about 9 registered sex offenders in the Reedsburg area right now. The next meeting to talk about this proposal will be at 7 o'clock at night on January 13th. They're encouraging everyone to show up who has an opinion and wants their voice to be heard on this.
Jamie Perez reporting tonight. Jamie, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. The man accused of a shooting in Janesville on Thanksgiving Day is being held on a $10,000 cash bond. Gage Holmes faces 1 charge of second-degree reckless injury, according to a criminal complaint. He allegedly shot his mother's estranged husband after a dispute. His next appearance in court will be Friday, December 13th at 1:30 p.m.
Wisconsin Democratic Attorney General Josh Kaul and advocates for sexual assault victims are calling on Republicans to take action on a bill designed to prevent future backlogs in the testing of evidence collected after sexual assaults. The proposal would set new timelines and protocols for nurses, victims, victims and members of law enforcement. It was developed by lawmakers, victim rights advocates, members of law enforcement, and others after years of discussion amid the criticism of the state's backlog. A sexual assault survivor says lawmakers should be embarrassed that the bill isn't passed.
This is not a race issue. This is not a gender issue. This is not a religious issue. This should not be a political issue. This is a human issue.
The measure has broad bipartisan support, but has languished in the Assembly. The Senate approved it back in October.
Former Governor Scott Walker says he won't run for office again before 2025, but he wouldn't rule anything out after that. Walker commented on his political future today during an event at the Milwaukee Press Club. Walker was governor of Wisconsin for 8 years before losing last year to Democrat Tony Evers, ending his 26-year run in elected office. The former governor also says he hopes Rebecca Kleefisch, his former lieutenant governor, will run for governor in 2022.
A section of the Military Ridge State Trail near Verona will be closed to all traffic starting today through Christmas Eve. That's to accommodate road construction near the new under construction Verona Area High School. That trail will be closed from the east side of Highway 151 tunnel to South 9 Mound Road. During this time, bicyclists and pedestrians may use a reroute. That's from South 9 Mound to West Verona Avenue to Epic Lane. Should snowmobile trails open during that time, they will also be rerouted. It's estimated the trail will be open in its entirety around the 1st of March. New data from the state DNR shows hunters killed dramatically fewer deer during the 9-day gun season than last year. Preliminary figures show hunters killed about 161,000 deer during the season that ended on Sunday. That's down 25% from the roughly 214,000 killed last year. DNR officials say the season started so late this year that hunters missed the rut and deer weren't moving around. They also said weather may have kept hunters out of the woods.
Today is Giving Tuesday, and we have some tips on how to make sure that your donations are going to the businesses and causes that you intend. Take a hard look at the numbers and know that every organization will take a portion of your donation for overhead costs. If you're donating to an organization like United Way, about 86% of all dollars go right to the programs and groups that it supports. CharityWatch.com says it's reasonable for most charities to spend up to 40% of their budget on operating expenses.
Don't guess. You have resources available to know that the dollars are going where they're needed and that the dollars are being used the way you want them to be used.
For easy-to-use tools to track how charities distribute funds, head to our website, channel3000.com. A special chicken is living out the rest of her life at the Heartland Sanctuary. This is Tuesday, who was born with a slipped tendon that made it difficult for her to walk. Her original owners were going to euthanize her when a family from Green Bay adopted her, but then she wasn't getting along with some of the other hens, and that's when she went to the Heartland Farm Sanctuary. They've built a wheelchair for her, and now she's an ambassador for the sanctuary.
She's this role model for a chicken that is differently abled, but receives absolute love, care, and attention, and is able to thrive even though she may not look just like everybody else. So it's a lesson in compassion, and it's a lesson in resilience.
The Heartland Farm Sanctuary is participating in Giving Tuesday. Their board of directors are participating in a match challenge, and they're matching up to $10,000 for the sanctuary.
More to come on News 3 Now at 5. Up next, the Democratic presidential race is shrinking after another candidate announces she is dropping out. Why she's now out of the race.
And then coming up tonight at 6, changes could soon be coming to the former General Motors site in Janesville. What developers are recommending at 6.
And it's 2 straight days of sizable drops on Wall Street. The Dow off more than 280 points today. The Nasdaq falls 47. S&P loses 21. We'll be right back. has dropped out of the 2020 presidential race.
Senator Kamala Harris launched her presidential campaign in January and quickly emerged as a potential frontrunner. But the California Democrat informed supporters today that she has run out of money. Her former rivals paid their respects.
She is an incredibly strong public servant and has done great work already for our country in the U.S. Senate, and I know she is going to do even more.
I have mixed emotions about her because she is really a solid person, and we're loaded with talent.
In the past 2 days, Montana Governor Steve Bullock and Pennsylvania's Joe Sestak also ended their campaigns. With Senator Harris officially out, 15 candidates remain in the race for the Democratic nomination.
The House Intelligence Committee says it will continue its investigation into President Trump. The committee preparing to vote on its impeachment inquiry report, which says, quote, President Trump personally and acting through agents within and outside of the U.S. government solicited the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, to benefit his reelection, and that he engaged in an unprecedented campaign of obstruction.
I am gravely concerned that if we merely accept this, that we invite not only further corruption of our elections by this president, but we also invite it of the next president.
Republicans released their own report yesterday saying there is, quote, no direct firsthand evidence that Mr. Trump improperly pressured the Ukrainian president. Both reports will go to the House Judiciary Committee ahead of Wednesday's hearing to examine the constitutional grounds for possible impeachment.
President Trump is in the United Kingdom for a 2-day NATO summit. The president attended a NATO reception hosted by Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace hours after blasting French President Emmanuel Macron for saying the 70-year-old alliance was, quote, brain dead without U.S. leadership. During a meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, President Trump criticized the entire alliance for not contributing enough in defense spending.
It's not right to be taken advantage of on NATO and also then to be taken advantage of on trade.
President Trump is expected to meet with German Chancellor Angela Merkel tomorrow.
Let's get a look at your first alert weather now. TV meteorologist Gary Canalti joins us now. Gary?
Well, the weather's very quiet today. Remember what you were doing 29 years ago today? I certainly was. I was doing the morning show back then, and I still hadn't left the station by this point because we had our worst blizzard in Madison's history. On this day, we had 17.3 inches of snowfall, Madison's record for the heaviest 24-hour snowfall. We had winds here at the station to 64 miles per hour and snow drifts to 7 feet. And just 1 week before the snowstorm, we had a record high temperature of 65 degrees. So that shows you how quickly things can change this time of year. And if we look at our temperature outlook over the next 10 days, temperatures should be slightly above normal for the next couple of days, a brief dip in temperatures on Friday, then back to above normal for the weekend. And look what happens to temperatures as we go into next week. At 32 on Monday will be early in the day with falling temperatures, and then we may not get out of the lower 20s for highs as we head into the latter part of next week and look at the possibility for some accumulating snow. And farther out in the future, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center is showing a pretty significant probability, about a 60% probability of below normal temperatures here in southern Wisconsin. And even the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook shows colder than normal weather in the midsection of the nation with warmer than normal weather on the East Coast and also on the West Coast. So the storm track is usually in between the two, and that puts us kind of right in the middle. The highest probability of above normal precipitation just off to our east, but still looking at about a 40% chance of above normal precipitation here. And that trend continues into the 8 to 14 day temperature or time period, which takes us up through December 17th. Now, as we take a look at the live view from the Edgewater Skycam downtown Madison, pretty quiet out there today, and a mild day as well. We did make it up to 42 in Madison after starting out at 27, and right now we're sitting at 38 degrees with mostly clear skies. The air calm and no wind chill to speak of with not much of a breeze, but the winds will pick up tomorrow. So 3 things you need to know in the forecast. We'll see partly sunny skies through Saturday, so very quiet weather, a little dip in the temperatures Friday, but that's about it. Next chance of precipitation will be some rain showers on Sunday, but that'll be followed by a windy and colder day on Monday with some light snow, maybe a couple of inches of accumulation in the afternoon, and then followed by even colder weather as we head toward the latter part of next week. Snow cover is very thick across the northern part of the Midwest. Notice the northern half of Wisconsin still about a foot of snow from about Eau Claire northward and about 2 feet up near Lake Superior. And look at the difference in temperatures. Right now, they're in the upper 20s to low 30s. We're in the upper 30s to middle 40s to the south where there's little or no snow cover. But compared to 24 hours ago, the temperatures have been trending up, so that's a good sign. We should see just a dip in temperatures by a couple of degrees for tomorrow. Forecast for tonight calls for skies to be partly cloudy, a quiet night, low temperature dropping to 27. For tomorrow, look for a partly sunny day, but it will be a little breezy, maybe not quite as mild, with a high temperature of 38 degrees. On future track, look for skies to be partly cloudy overnight with temperatures in the upper 20s. Tomorrow, again, high temperatures upper 30s. It will be a little more breezy. Notice the wind shift to the west-northwest. Tomorrow night, it'll be partly cloudy, and then we'll see a little more cloud cover toward morning, lows in the mid-20s. On Thursday, it looks like mostly cloudy skies, but this will be a thin overcast. High temperatures will be in the upper 30s, but that's followed by that colder day on Friday, a brief warm-up for the weekend with some rain showers on Sunday, and then you can see those temperatures really drop off for next week with a chance of snow toward the end of next week. As we take a look at first alert traffic right now, there's the view of the Beltline at Park Street, and you can see traffic moving pretty slowly in both directions. Right now, we're seeing delays on the eastbound Beltline from the usual spots from around Monona Drive all the way back to west of Verona Road. Westbound, we're seeing delays start around Fish Hatchery Road and going back almost to Monona Drive. So if we take a look at travel times right now, it's about a half-hour commute on the Beltline from University Avenue to the interstate going the eastbound direction. Westbound, about a 23-minute commute. If you're heading out of Madison, now 25 minutes down to Janesville on I-3990 from the Beltline, 18 minutes to Sauk City on US 12, and 17 minutes to Sun Prairie on East Washington Avenue and US 151. That's your News 3 Now First Alert Traffic.
All right, thank you, Gary.
Still ahead on News 3 Now at 5, why a disease that is usually most common in adults is becoming more common in children. That's after a short break. More than 100 million U.S. adults are now living with diabetes or pre-diabetes.
But a new study suggests the disease is becoming more common in children. Mandy Gaither has more in today's Health Minute.
1 in 5 adolescents is now pre-diabetic, according to a new study published in the Pediatric Journal of the American Medical Association. Pre-diabetes is a condition where blood sugar levels are elevated, but not high enough to warrant a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. The research estimates pre-diabetes in 18% of adolescents between the ages of 12 to 18 and 24% of young adults between 19 and 34 years old. Experts say the numbers have risen over the past decade, with young people at risk of developing type 2 diabetes, heart disease, or other conditions later in life. The numbers are even higher for adults. About 84 million Americans have pre-diabetes, according to a 2015 report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Most don't even know it. The new study's researchers hope the findings highlight the need for prevention efforts geared toward youth. For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Lifestyle modifications like diet and exercise can prevent or delay type 2 diabetes and other serious health problems.
Stay with us. We'll have another check of your forecast when we return.
Tonight on the CBS Evening News, President Trump in London with First Lady Melania. Their reception with the Queen today as the House releases its impeachment report. What's in that report and what happens next? Dating app danger, a new investigation tonight and what you need to know before swiping right. And a story about the power of positivity. We'll tell you about one very special teacher who never gives up and always shows up. We've got those stories and so much more tonight on the CBS Evening News.
Boy, what a day today.
Yeah,
Days
very
to
nice.
savor in December.
Yeah, take them when you can get them. High today, 42 in Madison. Janesville topped out at 45, 46 in Boscobel. Now temperatures are generally in the upper 30s. Boscobel still hanging on to a 41-degree temperature, but still not bad. Look for highs in the upper 30s next couple of days. A little colder for Friday, back into the upper 30s Saturday, mid-40s with the rain shower chance on Sunday. Looking next week, those temperatures back down to the lower 20s and some snow chances Monday and then toward the end of the week.
All right, CBS Evening News is next. We're back in 30 minutes for News 3 Now at 6.